Welcome to the Children's Author Show. Let's talk about money. That's right, the expenses and income potential of being an author. Is making money possible? How much is realistic? How do you do it? These are great questions, and we're going to talk about them today. Welcome to the Children's Author Show. If you ever dreamed of writing a book that inspires young minds, builds a lasting brand, and even creates a sustainable career, then you're in the right place. From crafting unforgettable stories, to marketing your books, to even monetizing your brand, we'll cover everything that you need to succeed as a children's author. So grab your notebook, fuel that creativity, and let's make your author dreams a reality. This is the Children's Author Show. Well, hey there, and welcome back to the Children's Author Show. My name is Andy Coates, an award-winning children's author, author coach, and your host of the Children's Author Show. And today we are talking about money. That's right, a big topic that every aspiring or developing author wonders about: money. How much does it actually cost to be a children's author? And more importantly, how much money can you actually make? And I'll be breaking it down for you today. We're going to talk about the income potential of being a children's author. And yes, we're going to talk about some real numbers. We're going to look at the real cost that happens with self-publishing, because you got the self-publishing part itself, the marketing piece, and the growing of your brand. And we're going to talk about how you can make money beyond just book sales. I believe this is going to be an eye-opening episode, so let's get into it. Let's start off with, I want to talk about, let's look first at the big picture. How much can a children's author make? Yeah, we might as well start here, because at the end of the day, this is a question I probably get asked more than any other question: is how much money is actually possible to make in this industry? So let's start with the dream. Let's look at the big picture of what's possible. And we've all heard about those massive success stories, right? We've heard about the authors like Dave Pilkey, who wrote Dogman or Captain Underpants. He reportedly makes anywhere from, most numbers show $20+ million per year he makes on his books. Or Jeff Kinney, who wrote Diary of a Wimpy Kid. His series has made him a multimillionaire twice over, way more than twice over, with over 250 million copies sold. And so old Jeff ain't hurting too much for the income. Or J.K. Rowling, who we all know wrote Harry Potter. And, she reportedly, last I saw, I believe she is one of the richest authors of all time across all genres. Now, she has a little bit of a benefit in that her movies turn into a worldwide, really the full-length feature films of a 7 books turn into 8-part series that has just taken off by storm, and then the merch, and then all the different avenues that she's made money, from theme park rides to everything in between. She's went from being a struggling single mom to where she ain't struggling at all anymore. And yeah, her net worth is somewhere over $1 billion last time I did see. Now, obviously these are those rare cases, and it's not the reality. This is going to happen to every author. Those are the rare cases, but each one of those individuals were no different than you and I when they started out. They began with a dream, a passion, a desire to create a story. They sharpened their tools. They worked on their craft, and because they were committed to the process, they found a lane, and it just took off. And that could potentially be one of you listening. One of our listeners could be one of those breakout stories. And while those rare cases are fun to talk about and to dream about and hope about, and, like the lottery, it's great to think about for a moment when those lottery tickets get way up there in the high multi-millions, close to billions. They're fun to talk about and to think about, but we can't build our lives around those. So let's talk a little bit about the reality. And I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade. I am a dreamer like anybody else. I think about the big picture dreams and what could be, but let's just dive into the reality a little bit today. The reality is that even a mid-tier children's author with a solid marketing plan and multiple books, just a mid-tier children's author can earn 6 figures per year from book sales, speaking engagements, and other revenue streams. That's right, 6 figures. It's possible. And that's just as a mid-tier children's author. You may have a breakout series that takes off and goes from, makes you more than that. But it's very possible, very feasible between book sales and speaking engagements and other revenue streams for you to have a 6-figure career in doing what you love. But every journey, we know, begins with that first single step. And that's what I want for you is maybe you're listening to this podcast and you are that next big children's author, that big success story that breaks out and is one of those rare cases. And I just want to say to you, if that becomes you, just remember your boy here on the Children's Author Show. But before you start dreaming about the $1 million book deals, we have to bring things back down to the reality of it begins with that single step, that even if you're going to be that next breakout person, there are some things you need to do right now to build that platform and build that positioning as a children's author and to build your brand that are going to help you sustain that career. And so I want to talk about the real cost of getting you started, getting you going as a children's author. And, writing a book is a whole lot of fun, but it's not free. You probably got into this because you enjoy the writing process, but it's not free. And there are some big expenses that come along with writing, especially if you go the self-publishing route. Now, if you're traditionally published, there still are some expenses you're going to have to endure, but I mainly want to look at, from a self-publishing standpoint, I want to look at the expenses. If you're self-publishing, you can expect to invest in, number one, editing. You are going to need an editor. I know a bunch of authors who because they're good editors themselves, feel like they don't need to hire an editor to edit their work. And I want to tell you that even the best editors struggle to edit their own work because you need another set of eyes on it. So whether that's from line editing up to developmental editing, you're going to need an editor. And this, depending on the length of your book and what type of book it is, you're looking at spending on the low end of like a under 500 word picture book, around $250 or so for that, up to if you're doing some developmental editing and need the line editing for a high fantasy or sci-fi book with 100,000 plus words, which you shouldn't be going that many words on a children's book, but let's say it's in the 60 to 70,000 word range, you can expect to pay $2,000 plus for your editing services. So it's rare you're going to pay over $2,000, but it's also rare that you need to be paying $250. So you can expect to be $300 to $500, maybe up to $1,000, depending on the developmental editing that you do need. So just plan for that in your budgeting. The next and probably largest piece for most children's authors who are especially creating a picture book are going to be illustrations. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. I haven't even mentioned the numbers yet, but when I do, be ready. I'm about to drop some numbers on you. And when I do, your instinct is going to be, I'll just do it myself. And if you just do it yourself, then when somebody looks at your book on a shelf, they're going to say that person did it theirself. And you don't want someone to look on the shelf and know that you did it yourself. You want them to look at your book and say, that is a high quality children's book. And in order to get a high quality children's book, you're going to need a high quality illustrator. And to get a high quality illustrator, you need to go ahead and budget for over $2,000. And now you may have heard people throwing around numbers that are less than that they would do it for $800 to $1,000. And there are people who will do it for that price. But you're also going to potentially just have somebody who is using AI work, or they're using somebody else's work, or maybe they live in a country where there's not regulations like we have on copyrighted and trademarked materials, and it's not them who's going to get in trouble where they live. It's going to be probably you who gets in trouble. So just be cautious there. And I would say you need to budget for $2,000 plus. Now, a traditional publishing house might spend $10,000 to $12,000 plus on a really high quality illustrated picture book, but you're not going to be in that ballpark. You can probably realistically plan for anywhere from $2,000 to up to $5,000, depending on the detail of characters and backgrounds and style and the artist that you want to use. So, $2,000 to $3,000 is where you probably can be comfortable in. But if you have a lot of detailed work or a very specific style that you're looking for, you could spend up to $5,000 on illustrations. And then with book formatting, which is putting everything in place and making sure that the fonts look good and that the graphic design looks good to your book and that everything is inside of its, printable areas, and that when you upload this to the different platforms you want to be on, that everything's going to print, or when you submit it to your printing house, that they're going to print this and the bleeds are going to be correct, and that the text isn't going to fall off the pages and that it's centered to the page, and all that book formatting. It's a detail you don't want to overlook. And a lot of people end up doing this themselves. They get some good programs and they learn the process, and there's great resources out there for this. I do all my formatting myself, and you can learn that craft and do it well. But if it's an area that's just not your skill set, you can expect to pay anywhere from $100 to $500 range, depending on, again, book length and size makes a big difference on what that price tag ends up looking like for your book formatting. ISBNs and copyrights are something for you to think about. If you're going to write multiple books, I would encourage you to look at purchasing some bigger packages with ISBNs. But just to get a single ISBN and a copyright, you're going to spend about $125 for an ISBN. You can expect to spend around, I think it's, last I checked, like $65 or something like that for a copyright. So under $200 for an ISBN and a copyright for the book. But again, I would encourage you, if you go to Bowker and you're looking at their site to get the ISBNs, they sell packages where you can get, 10 of them or even 100 of them. And it's, if you buy one, it's $125. If you buy 10, you're paying like $300. If you buy 100 of them, you're paying like $500. So it's definitely, you're talking $125 for one, or if you buy 100, you're only paying like $5 per ISBN. So if you're going to publish, I would say more than 10 books, it's worth it for you to go ahead and purchase the 100 pack. If you're not sure you're going to purchase that many, maybe just get 10 to start with. But I wouldn't, unless you're just going to do a single book only, I would say you at least need to buy 10 of them. Because if you're going to buy one, realistically, you're probably going to want to either buy, you're going to produce a paperback and a hardback. Well, that's two different ISBNs. If you want a paperback and a ebook, that's two different ISBNs. So you want to make sure that you have enough for what you're going to produce and publish. And if you want to do a second book in that series, just 2 books, it's worth it. You get 8 free essentially if you buy the 10 pack. So something to look into as you're budgeting is to maybe look to at least get that 10 pack to start out with. If you're a beginning author, go ahead and get the 10 pack. And it'll also encourage you to, hey, I need to make some more books, which is what you're going to need if you're going to make money in this industry, is to have multiple books out there. So I'd say go ahead and look to get at least that 10 pack. And then printing and distribution cost. To print a book, whether that's a picture book or a middle grade novel, you're going to spend anywhere from $2 to $6 per copy for books. Now, if you go and you print, if you get some prints just done yourself, you go to an independent publisher or a distributor or print shop to get your books printed, then those print shops can do them for a little bit cheaper than if you're doing print on demand, but you're going to have minimal orders. You may have to buy 250 to 1,000 copies in order to get the lower prices, or maybe even more than that, 2,000 copies if you want to get them at that lower cost per printed book. And now they may be able to get them under $2 a book for you, but you're going to have to buy 2,000 of them at a time. And you don't want to have a garage full necessarily, unless you do, full of a bunch of books. So if you're going to do the print on demand, of course, the print on demand costs are higher. So you're looking at, anyway, a picture book, as of the time I'm recording this, it's like $4.25 to print a 32-page full color premium paper, 8.5 by 8.5 picture book is about $4.25, $4.50 per copy for print on demand, plus the distribution. That's just your print cost. So, and then you share that royalty with Amazon or whatever print house or whatever print on demand company you're using. So you're looking at, and if you're doing like myself, who did a chapter book that has a lot of illustrations, 100 pages of high quality premium paper and illustrations on every other page, it's my cost per book are very expensive. So your cost per book are anywhere from $2 to $6 per copy, and you're going to need to have some copies on hand. So expect to have 100 copies, 200 copies that you're going to have on hand to get you started in your own journey as you're doing author events and book signings and all that stuff. You're going to want to have some copies. And if you only do the print on demand and you don't print through a print shop, independent printer, and you're going to do through Amazon or Ingram Spark, you can get those individual copies. And there is both of them are going to charge you at cost for that, but it takes several weeks to get them to you, and they're going to charge you at cost. But those costs are higher because they are print on demand, and then you're going to pay for the shipping to get them to you. So with all those numbers factored in, you're looking at realistically anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 of your upfront. Again, depending on how much you're going to spend. Realistically, let's just go on the low end of this, and let's say you get the illustrations for $2,000 to $3,000, and you're gonna get just 100 to 200 copies of your book, and you're gonna pay for the formatting and the ISBNs, and you're gonna pay for a medium range editing. You're still gonna be around $4,000 to $5,000. Let's just throw that number there, around $4,000 to $5,000 in your self-publishing expenses. Now, we haven't even got to anything else yet. That's just your self-publishing expenses. And then we get to the event expenses, book signings, school visits, launch party costs, all those things cost money. And you're likely going to need things like you're going to need a table set up and decorations for events that you go to. I do a lot of festivals and fairs and school visits where I have a table set up with my books on them and a place for people to purchase those books. And that table set up to promote my brand, to get a good brand set up it's about $300. You get you a nice tablecloth, and you get little banners and stuff like that for your table, and you can expect to spend $300 pretty easy to get that just table set up. Some decorations for it. Again, a high quality tablecloth, the fitted tablecloth, not just one that's going to blow around in the wind, and have that good and I would say get your own table that you bring with you. That's going to be a nice quality table. That way, that your table cover is going to fit over the top of it. So that nice cloth tabletop, maybe with your brand logo on there, you're going to spend about $300 for that stuff. Then travel expenses, to that event, depending on how far away it might be, you could be under $100 to a couple $100, depending on how big the event is and where you're going, and if you got to get lodging and all that kind of stuff. And then marketing materials, banners, posters, postcards, business cards, things that you want to out, stickers, all that stuff that you want to giveaways, those marketing materials that you want to put in the hands of people who come by your booth at the festivals or the fairs that you're going to be doing. You want to have something that you put in their hands, plus you want to have banners that catch attention and posters and all that kind of stuff. You're looking at spending $200 to $300 worth of stuff right there. I usually get stickers, and to get 2,500 stickers, I'm going to spend $100. And if I'm going to get 2,500 business cards, I'm going to spend $75 to $80. And, all those little $100 bills add up in your marketing budget. So you can plan for about, once you get your full setup, your table and your display stuff, those are going to be fixed costs. But then you can expect, a couple $100 you're going to need for every event you do to restock business cards if you need to, and stickers and, anything you're going to give away, and then maybe even have to pay to get into the entry into those events. And so a couple $100 per event you're going to do, plus that initial setup, which is going to be around $500 to get you a good quality booth to set up, and you'll stand out from the crowd, and that drives sales and books you a lot of visits for the future for other events. And then you get into advertising expenses. Now, this is a whole different topic that we could spend a whole episode on and discussing. It's an area where just when I think I've got it figured out, the algorithms change and the platforms change how they're doing everything. And it can just be wild to try to figure out how to best advertise on these different platforms of social media and the platforms to which you may have your book for sale on. And if you want people to find your book, you're going to need ads. You're going to need to at some point run some ads. I always encourage authors that, hey, at least for your book launch week, you want to run some ads to build some momentum, to get your reviews. Hopefully you're going to get reviews from a launch team that you set up, and they're going to help drop some reviews on your book. And that's going to be very helpful for you to have that, because the algorithm is going to be, right now for a lot of these platforms, are based off of reviews that you get. In particular, if you're on Amazon, those reviews are significant, but so are sales. And so you're going to need to drive sales to your platform to make the sale. Now, I talk to a lot of authors, and most authors love to sell through their website, because website sales, they're going to make more money. But in order for Amazon's algorithm to kick in, where Amazon starts putting your book in front of customers, you're going to need to drive sales to Amazon in order for it to pick up that momentum and for Amazon to kick in and help out. So if you're going to run Amazon ads, you can, it's a hard number to say for sure, but realistically, you could spend $50 to $100 a day running ads in your first push for a launch of a book. And that still may not move the needle too much. But I would at least give that a shot, see how that works, test out the market. Never do a 30-day run. Maybe set up a 4 to 5 day run and see how that's going, just so you don't, break the bank trying to run ads and it just not be a great ad that you're running campaign. I'd also encourage you to think about organic advertising. That if you create a post and that post gets a lot of views, well, then create another post like that, run that as an ad, and then you just boost that post, whether that's through Facebook ads or Instagram ads or whatever social media platform it is. Run your ads through that post that is drawing attention and getting, and let that be part of your advertisement for your book. But you can expect, if you're running a Facebook or Instagram ad campaign, anywhere from $100 to up to $1,000 per campaign. And you just want to make sure that it's actually driving customers to make sales. So if you're not getting that traction and it's not converting, you want to check those conversion rates, because if it's not converting into sales, just getting people to know that you have a book isn't the same as getting people to purchase the book. So in this game, we're trying to get people to click buy, not just say, ooh, wow, or that's cool. We want them to actually make a purchase. And so all of our advertising expenses for running ads needs to be driving people to making a purchase. And then, book promo services that you may decide to do with, such as giveaways. If you're going to do on your social media platform, you're going to give some different books away. Maybe each month you do a book day giveaway, where on the third Thursday of the month, you're giving a book out of yours to a customer who does something for you, or you're drawing from the new people who've joined your email list that month. You're going to give a book away, a signed copy away, or whatever you might want to do. You can look to spend a couple of, this could be $50 to $100 a year, or if not more, depending on how many books and you're going to promo. Maybe you give a lot of books away. And if you're going to give a bunch, maybe you have like 20, 30, 40, 50 books you want to give away. And if you're going to spend $3 a book and you're giving away, 50 books, that's $150. So you need to take that into consideration if you're going to give those books away. I would encourage you that if you're going to do some promos like that, look to maybe give away a digital copy, and that can save you a little bit. But people are more motivated if they're getting a physical copy, especially if it's a signed physical copy. So that's some expenses around advertising. And then again, I mentioned earlier the book inventory expenses, depending on how many you want to have up front, that 50 to 100 to 200 copies, you can expect to spend, again, if it's, let's say on average, let's say they're $2. No, let's go a little higher than that because 2 is low. Let's say they're $3 a copy, and you're going to have 200 copies on hand. Well, you're going to spend $600 to get those copies, to have that many copies on hand to be able to give away, to sell, to go to events with, things like that. Especially if you're going to do school visits, it's nice to have a good inventory. And as you grow this business of yours, you're going to have multiple books and you're going to do multiple events, and you want to make sure you keep your own inventory stocked. I would say you need to have anywhere from 50 to 100 copies of your book on hand at any given time so that you're available to go to any event and be able to fulfill the orders that you're probably going to get. I have a whole nother training I'll be doing that has just information about what when you go to how to maximize events and what to plan for when you're doing different events, school visits, or those festivals and fairs and things like any event that you're going to go do, what to prepare for those different events. And then giveaway expenses, again, like I mentioned, free book copies, shipping costs. That's something to think about. If you're going to give away a book, then you're going to eat the cost of the print for the book, but you also are going to have to ship that book to them. So you got to factor in some shipping costs. Just be sure to calculate those things as you're budgeting for a book. And then brand promotional expenses, things like website. I think it's great to have a nice static website that you don't have to, that's low maintenance. That is, unless you're going to drive all your sales through your website, where you need to keep that updated with new books that you're launching out, things like that. I would at least have a platform, a website that's pretty static, that doesn't require a whole lot of work, because we want you building things to help grow your brand and not having to do the back end work. If you get to the point where you want a very active website, I would say have somebody who manages that for you. You can get someone to do that pretty inexpensively in the grand scheme of things, but you probably need an author website of some kind, static or active. You need a website. And so, $100+ I'll just put it like that for a website to have, a basic one set up, plus your hosting fees per year are going to be a couple $100. And depending on how fancy of a website you want, there are some very inexpensive options out there for websites, but again, you may have to have a little bit of a skill set to set those up. Email marketing tools. If you're going to build your email marketing, your email list, then you're going to want to have some marketing tools there. That could be, $10 to $50 a month. Again, depending on how active you're going to be with your email marketing campaigns. I would say you also need a logo and a brand, a brand package, if you will, with colors and color schemes and things like that. So getting a logo made, a couple $100 to have kind of a brand logo set up that's going to identify you and set you apart. And these are kind of all the setup expenses. And you may be thinking, oh my gosh, he was just throwing $100 bills around, thousands of dollars around like it was nothing. And I get it, because you look at all these things and that list starts to add up. If you were taking notes there and you were just marking all the different things and writing numbers down, you're looking at them and you're saying, wow, this is going to cost me $8,000, $10,000 to get started. And the reality is, yes, that is the case. If you're going to spend the time and energy and effort to create a book, and you want to go commercial where it's going to be something that you are selling to a customer, you are starting a business, and there are upfront business expenses. And to be an author, you're going to have some upfront business expenses. What's great is if you start, I'm not an accountant, but I would encourage you to talk to an accountant. You can set this up where these are going to be business expenses, and there's some things you can do as you start this business that can help you get some tax breaks and things like that may offset a lot of these costs and things like that they'll be very helpful for you with these expenses. But yes, it's going to cost money, and I don't want to shy away from it or paint a picture as if you can do this for free. Now, could you go write something tomorrow and slap something together in Canva and then format it yourself and then hit publish on Amazon? Yes. And you could probably do all those things and not spend a dime. But guess what? Nobody's going to purchase that book. And if you want this to be something that people want, and that's going to live beyond your time, it's going to take some investment. And if I would just stopping right here and pausing for a moment, if this is a passion project for you, I would say don't spend the crazy expensive money in getting high dollar illustrations and all this money on marketing materials and things like that, because you're not trying to build a business. You're just for you, it's a passion project, and let it be that. But if you're wanting to build a brand and a business, and you want to commercially compete out there with your book, that people buy this, and you're inside of schools, and you're trying to distribute this to as many people as possible, then this is a business and needs to be treated as such. And it's going to take you probably around $10,000 to get you started with your business expenses, to build your brand and to kick it off and to do it well and to do it right. So $10,000, I'm throwing that number out there for you, and that may be a little overwhelming. So let's shift gears here. Let's talk about how to make money as a children's author. I've just told you how to spend the money, right? I've just talked you off a cliff on how to spend it. Now let's talk about the fun part of this, how to make money as a children's author. And this, I do think this is fun to discuss, because I'm going to be real with you today. We're going to talk about some real money and real numbers, and you can make real money from your books that you write. And so let's start with the ways which you can make money. How can you make money in this industry? Well, of course, number one, first and foremost, is going to be from book sales. Self-published authors typically make anywhere from $2 to $5 per book. On average, I think it's around $3 or something. That's probably good, especially if you're doing print on demand. If you're publishing, getting these printed yourself through a print shop, then and you're paying for the shipping and you're dealing with all that, you got more work to do, but you're going to make more per copy. But print on demand with places like Ingram Spark or Amazon, you're probably going to make $2 to $5, with that $3 something being on average for the cost or for the amount of royalty you're going to bring in per book, $2 to $5 per book. And so let's run some numbers. You sell 1,000 copies a year. Well, that's $2,000 to $5,000 per book that you're going to make. Let's go crazy with it. You sell 10,000 copies in a year. Well, that's $20,000 to $50,000 that you're going to make off your book or books. So let's say you say 10,000 copies a year of my book. That's a lot of copies to sell. Let's do a little bit different math here. You sell 1,000 copies of your book a year, but you have 10 different books out there that are each selling 1,000 copies. It's the same $10,000 or 10,000 copies, and 10,000 copies equals $20,000 to $50,000 that you can make. Now, when I started this out, I told you can build a six-figure career off of being a mid-tier author through book sales, events, and other opportunities to make money. It's pretty realistic that as an author, 10,000 copies is a lot of copies to sell in a year's time as a self-published author. Now, in the traditional space, that's a good number to 5,000 to 10,000 copies is a probably a little more achievable on a national scale. But if you're a self-published first-time author, to reach a 10,000 copies sold in a year is going to be a lot of work. Now, if you have 10 to 20 books that you've created and they all sell really well and you put the effort into them, it's easy to see those income numbers start to drive up, where $50,000 a year off of book sales is pretty realistic. But it's not just about book sales. If you're going to build an author brand, I want to encourage you, if you want to be that mid-tier author and you want to make money, a portion of it's going to come from your book sales, but there's other places that I think are great to make money as well. So let's talk now about author events and book fairs. Event book sales, you can expect. So if you're going to do an event and a festival, a fair, you're not going to make a whole lot of money just off of book sales at most of these events. I tell people on average, you can expect, if you break even at one of these events, great. Then you're at least not in the red. But anywhere from, just call it $500 is probably going to be a good day at one of these festivals or fairs, unless they're really big events with tens of thousands of people showing up per day to these festivals and fairs, you're probably going to be around $500 that you're going to make, because you're competing with all these other artists, and most people are out there just to have a good time, not to purchase a bunch of books. Or if it's a book fair, then you're competing with everyone else who's also selling books. And so $500 is a good day at one of those events. But if you can become a speaker at one of those events, author events or book fairs, you can charge for your speaking fees. So if you're able to speak at one of these events, it also will drive up your sales. So if it's a fair or festival that has speaking opportunities and you can land one of those speaking gigs, then you make $700-800 to speak at the event. Plus, that's probably going to drive a little more sales. You may make about that same amount of selling your books at that event. So now, instead of a $500 event, you're looking at a $1,500 event or more, depending on how much those numbers are for you. So, those events, you're not going to just make a fortune off of doing those events. And I always say, and I have a whole different video on the topic of events and stuff, but the purpose of those events are more about networking than they are making money. But there's a little bit of money to be made at those events. So the more you book, the more you're going to make a little bit of money off of them. But an area I love that I think is great are school visits. And you can throw library events in here with these, but primarily on school visits. On average, the average school visit honorarium for professional authors is anywhere from $300 at the low end to $2,000 plus per visit. And now people are going to be willing to pay whatever you're willing, the product you're going to provide. So you can't charge $2,000 for a $200 event. It better be a great, high quality event that you're providing. And a lot of that's not just about the day, but about the services you provide leading up to the event. But on average, at a school visit, I'm going to make anywhere from $500 to $1,000 between the different opportunities of income that I offer to the school that day. Again, I have a whole different video about school visits as well. But, if you're going to do it per assembly, you can make different amounts per assembly that you're going to charge. Or I do like VIP luncheons and things like that I throw in there as options as well for a school visit. So not counting your book sales from those events, just the honorarium. If you do 20 school years or 20 school visits in a year, let's just say, and on average, you pull in, let's call it $500 per visit. 20 school visits a year, $500 a visit, that's $10,000. So now if we back up to our numbers here of 10,000 copies that you can sell across all your books, you're at $20,000 to $50,000. Let's call it $50,000. And now with, events that you have, if you're going to, let's say it's $500 and you do 20 of those a year, there's another, what's my math on that? 20 of those a year, $500, that's another $10,000 there. If you're doing $500 a school visit and you're making just off of your visit honorariums, that's another $10,000. We're at up to $70,000 that you're making off of your book sales plus your school visits. And hitting those $10,000 numbers are a whole lot easier to hit when you're in 20 schools per year. Because not only are you getting the sales at the schools, but you're also going to be sending stuff home with them to be able to purchase more and more books. And then you get into conference and seminar presentations. If you're doing that many school visits and you become that regional expert as an author, there's a lot of businesses that are going to want you to bring in and talk about your success and your experiences, and they want to hear about them. And you can book some presentations as an author. And especially if you learn and master the craft of that public speaking and providing a high quality presentation, and you get really good at that presentation, these conferences and seminars, these businesses will bring you in and you can speak at these events. And usually you book an event and those events are going to lead to multiple other events. And when you do that, you can expect to make anywhere from $500 to, I've made up to $5,000 off of speaking presentations at conferences. So again, even they'll fly you into to speak at these conferences. So to make money off of flying into a conference and speaking at that conference, and whether you're talking about leadership or talking about sales, or you're talking about just your experience as a children's author, because of what you're doing in your background, you can make good money off of going and speaking at these conferences. Again, oftentimes they may fly you to some nice, fun locations that you get to go and speak, and you share your passions and talk about what you love, and they're going to pay you, $500 to $5,000, if not more, depending on the quality you bring for these conferences. And you do a couple of those a year, and boom, you are easily hitting those numbers. You do several of those in a year's time, and say you do one a month. Let's say at $1,000 per event, that's an extra $12,000, and you land a couple of the big ones, and you're easily at that point. You're making some good money as a children's author, which leads into not just at these big conferences, but you just give some guest speaker talks and teaching workshops, and running workshops, whether it's in person or online. And you're doing $500 to $2,000-$3,000 per session. Where you have people who are coming in. Maybe you're an illustrator and you're going to do some illustration workshops, or you're doing workshops on the craft of writing, and you're doing some writing seminars and workshops. You can charge $500 to $3,000 per session, depending on how many participants are involved in it. And as you can see, these numbers quickly start to add up. So to become that mid-tier, now it's a lot of work. I've just given you a lot of opportunities to make money, but I've also just booked your year up. But how fun would it be that you can be a six-figure earner, and because a lot of these expenses you're going to be able to write those expenses off, so that six-figure income in your business is going to go a whole lot further than a six-figure income of working a traditional 9-to-5 job. And I would encourage you to keep the 9-to-5 job, and you take some vacation days to pull off these big events, or you try to schedule them on weekends, and you take off a few days to do your school visits, and you try to double up the school, do one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and all of a sudden you can take a day off from work, even if it's unpaid, because the money you're going to make is well worth it. And you're building a business while you're maintaining your career, and the money you make off the business, you pour back into the business to help grow and develop and expand it. And it doesn't take long before you start to see, hey, I could probably step into this on at least a part-time basis, or maybe I scale my job back to part-time, and I'm doing my writing and author business on a part-time basis. So just to kind of recap here, just some final thoughts here as we've been talking about that money is, yes, children's authors can make great money, but it takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes effort, and probably most importantly, it takes a strategy. What are you going to do in your own brand that fits who you are to make money? Now, I was throwing around the six-figure incomes. I told you it's going to take about $10,000 to get you started in this business. And if you could just make the $10,000 off of your books and you get to break even, then and most of those were your upfront cost and they were fixed. And now that book is profitable moving forward. So what I tell authors is, hey, in your first year, shoot for the target of breaking even. If you can break even in year number 1, everything beyond that is just gravy on top. Like we like to say in the South part of the United States, in the South, it's just that gravy on top. And so that's a nice target to shoot for. But beyond that, you can make some really good money, especially if you're maintaining your career just on top of what you're already doing. Imagine that extra $5,000, $10,000 a year coming in as profit per book that you're making. That can be a very, very powerful thing for you and your family and your family's legacy for most authors out there. So something for you to think about. And again, every book you produce, you can expect to spend those same things. But when you have a good strategy in place, it starts to make sense. And there are some real expenses involved in this, publishing and marketing. So you need to plan for them. So you can make good money, but you need to plan for those real expenses and be realistic about them. Don't try to take shortcuts. If you take shortcuts, it's not going to hurt you on the front end. It's going to hurt you on the back end. It's going to mean instead of making those $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 paydays per year of that income, you're looking at $2,000, $3,000 And for most authors who take the shortcut up front, after friends and family stop buying them because they love you, you don't see another one get sold, even when you go into schools, because they're going to compare them to other books that they come across. And so don't shortcut the system. Pay the real expenses to get good quality that you put out there to the marketplace. There's also not just that one way of book sales to make money. As we've discussed today, there are multiple ways for you to make money beyond just those book sales. From speaking engagements to school visits to book festivals and fairs. And really, there's a lot of other creative ways that I share with those who I coach. That are just some fun, creative ways that we'll talk about even in some other videos of how you can make some money in all these different areas, especially like school visits, and how to make more money at school visits without it hurting the schools, where you can make a lot of book sales without it affecting necessarily the school or the kids. So there's some fun, creative ways that we can do that as well, that I'll be talking about in some other videos. So today, if you have found this episode just to be helpful, I want to tell you, you'll love my book that I have, the Children's Author Toolbox. It is packed full of step-by-step guides, cost breakdowns. I talk about money in that book as well, and just some of those other money-making strategies that I was just talking about. You can find all those in that book, the Children's Author Toolbox. It'll be a great, helpful resource for you to succeed as a children's author. So grab you a copy today. You can find that on Amazon. The link for that will be in the show notes. So I'm going to encourage you to pick up that copy of that. You want to, it's cheap. Go get it. It's going to be such a valuable resource. I believe every children's author needs that on their shelf. So it'll be in the show notes for you to purchase. And that's it for today's episode, as we've talked about the money, the moolah, making it and spending it. And I've taught you how to do both of those things really well today on the Children's Author Show. If you have enjoyed it, please do me a favor, like, subscribe, leave us a review, and please share this episode with other aspiring children's authors. And if you're watching us on YouTube, maybe you're just learning that we are on YouTube as well, and you can watch this episode on YouTube. You can see my big, beautiful bald head here as we have this conversation. I'd love for you to join us on YouTube, and if you do so, please leave us a comment. I'd love to have a conversation with you. It's the best place for us to engage and have that conversation. Check us out on social media. But most importantly of all, I want to encourage you, keep writing, keep growing, and hey, I'll see you next time on another video. Have a great week. See ya.